And I just get very upset by the victory of lies. I think that there's a part of me doesn't need agreement about everything. But I yearn for good contact with other people. It's particularly gratifying to have good contact with people who are on the other side of some line. When I've traveled, I really like good contact with people who are citizens of other countries. My wife feels the same way. If we have a really nice encounter with somebody where we're having our cappuccino and we get into a conversation and it all feels good, that's very gratifying. When I ran for Congress, some of the most wonderful experiences I had were like going to African American churches and being part of that world for some hours and talking to people and making common cause and feeling a sense of our just goodwill being exchanged. That was kind of a wonderful feeling. And there are things in the African American culture that are very much about opening the heart, and I was more likely to have that feeling in an African American church and making contact with those people than in, say, a Unitarian church where I would have other kinds of contact that were gratifying, but were not as much, of the heart. I want to have relationship with all of the neighboring people. I mean, not in a stupid, but in general, to feel in harmony with my neighbors. And I did have that feeling when I was doing talk radio back for hundreds of hours from 1992 for a whole decade. At which point I went to New Mexico, but I got to see that that the lie was starting to take hold, and by 2005, it wasn't possible anymore to have that good feeling that I used to really appreciate, that we would talk about questions of meaning and value that we faced in our lives. And we would meet as sort of human beings, and even talking about some of the things that we disagreed about wouldn't interfere with that nice feeling that somehow, however it is I'm wired, that's what I want. April and I have a very warm friendship with two couples of people who are Republican. April made contact with the woman of one of those by virtue of her serving on the electoral board, and the two of them, one appointed by the Republican Party of the area and my wife appointed by the Democratic Party, worked together for a couple of years, and they just loved each other. It was just kind of wonderful, and I appreciate her, and I've got a really warm feeling about her husband. I think they're splendid people. And when we get together with them and with another couple where I was the one that had met in a public way the man of that family, because he would engage with me on the online version of one of the newspapers where my op-eds appear, and he would sometimes challenge me or engage with me, but he was very civil. I've been going after this fascist force for full-time since 2004, which is when I saw how dark and dangerous this was. I've been doing that for almost about 20 years, and I've had a lot of experiences, as a blogger with 2,000 or 3,000 people coming every day to my, by the way, please do follow me. It helps me out, makes me feel better anyway. I would have a lot, variety of interactions with liberals and with conservatives. And I got to tell you, op-eds in the newspaper and online discussions, this guy here that I'm talking about was unique in engaging in a civil way. Otherwise, it seemed like the forces of W's America, back when George W. Bush was president, and then into Obama's time with the ugliness that was on the right then. All I got was trolls. This guy wasn't a troll. We had discussions online, and he was appreciative. He was respectful. Um, he made arguments. He sometimes responded favorably to my counter arguments. And anyway, he and his wife are lovely people. And we've had 3 gatherings now of the 3 couples. And we have a rule of no politics. I was reminded of the value of that rule recently when I had an exchange with the woman that my wife had become so close to, and with whom I feel like I've got a friendship now too. I asked a question that didn't require our discussing any kind of political issues. I was just sort of like informational about her part of the world, and I would have liked it better if she had confined, this is by email, she had confined her answer to my question to no politics, but she didn't. And in the course of talking about my question and where that led her thinking, she said something that was, well, she said a few things that, I did. It was disturbing to me, particularly that she said something that indicated that she thought that the prosecutions of Donald Trump, and she's not pro-Trump, but she apparently is in that world in such a way that she believes that the prosecutions of Donald Trump are politically motivated, that the Justice Department, etc., parts of the opposing political side are going after Trump in order to hurt him, using the law as a weapon for political purposes. I felt very disturbed when I read that. I went upstairs and I said to my wife what had happened. And I said, I got 3 options as I see it. One is to simply not say anything, just to let my question and her answer close it out. But I have sort of an ethic or an emotional practice that I don't usually, if I feel something, I usually try to find some way to express it. I guess it's, part of my believing in the truth. But so I said the second option would be I would write back to her and I said, I would thank her for this and that and, a couple cordialities. And I say, by the way, I really do think that we should abide by that let's not talk politics thing, because there were a couple things in your email to me that I found disturbing to see were what you think, and left it at that. And then the third option would be to go on from there and to particularly say that the idea that Trump is being prosecuted for political purposes is quite obviously, blatantly, and importantly wrong. That is, any serious attention to the actual facts that have unfolded in recent years leads abundantly, a mountain of evidence shows it's just the opposite. The Biden Department of Justice made a serious mistake in trying to do everything possible to avoid going after Trump, but it became absolutely irresistibly necessary to prosecute him. I mean, what this does to me, and what it did sort of immediately, was to make me feel really alienated from this person I really like and respect. She's very capable. She's intelligent. She's educated. She may not know all about various realms of things that I might regard as important for understanding the world that we live in. But she's really sharp, and she understands a lot about, sort of how the world works. But I felt alienated from her because of that issue of the truth. I'm thinking of writing an op-ed piece about how that's sort of like the one thing that I seem to not be able to get around. I mean, I watch the news and I see all these things that throughout my first, I don't know, so let's just say 60 years or 55 years of life as an American, if something like this were to be claimed, they just couldn't get away with it, Like I saw something the other day that the Republicans are making a big deal about going after illegal aliens voting. It's already against the law, but they're passing another law. It's all theater to deceive people. There is no problem about immigration, illegal people not here legally voting illegally. It's just not a problem. I think there's less than 100 cases over about a 20-year period. Geez, man. And it's just theater to sell. I mean, I don't know if my friend who believes that Trump's being politically prosecuted for political motivation, if she also believes that there's a problem, and I mean, she serves on the electoral board, maybe she knows that that's a lie. I kind of wonder, once you identify any of these lies, and it's the right wing nowadays is like, it's lies from top to bottom. I mean, they really don't deal in any important truths anymore. Climate change, racism, the Biden crime family, our economy being in terrible shape. It's hard to connect with people. It's hard for me to connect with people and get the feeling that I want to have with them. Like I did when I was doing radio here in the Shenandoah Valley, where there were disagreements, but they were of the kind that we could productively talk about. And then one of the ways I have of explaining how it became impossible to have constructive conversations anymore, when the callers all believed that Barack Obama wasn't qualified to be president because he'd been born in Africa. I mean, in 1961, there was a birth notice about Barack Obama in Hawaii. How does a lie like that get situated? But once you get on, you're talking with somebody who believes that, what kind of conversation can you have? You can't disabuse them of that belief, apparently. So I have actually found it very painful that a lot of that good feeling that I had as a member of the community, in a way, is through my role on talk radio. I mean, I've usually been an isolated guy with thinking my thoughts and writing my books, and I spent a lot of energy going into the radio world to try to create constructive conversations from which we might actually learn from each other, as I put it in the introductions, conducted in a spirit of mutual respect. I really miss that mutual respect discourse, which I was able to extend back in the 90s to people who had different beliefs, and but we could talk about them in a respectful way. I loved doing that, but that became impossible when a transformation occurred in the Republican base, having to do with lies. You know, when I ran for Congress, my campaign slogan was "Truth for a Change." That's my thing. I believe in the power of the truth. Emotionally, I kind of yearn that we can share uh, sort of the basic factual truths, that we can relate to the reality and then ask, different kinds of questions. So, which leads to the possibility now that we could go to the fundamental flaw of the libertarian ideology, and the market has its blind spots. We can go there because there's a distinction between the kinds of truths or untruths that, at least I'm making a distinction. I think it's got something fundamental about it. Things like a problem with illegal immigrants voting as a way, being thrown out there as a way, of preparing the way to pretend that Donald Trump won when he lost, like in 2020, and B, as a way of eroding people's confidence in our electoral system, which is part of the larger assault on the democratic process, just like Trump is making people think that the rule of law, that our whole legal system is just a bunch of witch hunts and fake news um, and politically corrupt prosecution of political enemies, rather than recognizing that what we've got with Jack Smith and with what's his name, Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, what we've got are dedicated people who have been devoted to the rule of law. As was Robert Mueller, what a huge disappointment he was. And Andrew Weissman and Adam Schiff and Jamie Raskin. There are heroes who believe in the basic American system where the law rules. But they've been sold an obviously false picture. And I feel alienated from them. Sometimes I think about, it's like being at the bedside of a loved one who's in a coma, and you don't know if they can hear anything you say. And I put out my op-eds every week, trying to hoping that there's some kind of listening going on, but not having any particular reason to believe it. But with respect to libertarianism, that's a different kind of disagreement, which is the kind of thing that's productive to be able to talk about. I was kind of hankering for good conversations about things like what the libertarians think is the path to a good human world, because I think there are some fundamental flaws, and I feel like I'm able to show them. There are questions about how do we interpret how the world works, not about things like, did Trump commit crimes? Yeah, of course he did. It's crystal clear he did. He's guilty. They were serious crimes. He needs to be punished to maintain the American system. Was the 2020 election stolen? No, it wasn't. It was obviously not stolen. It's been more fully established than any other election in our history as being safe and secure. And even though it wasn't a landslide, it wasn't all that close. And clearly Biden won, Trump lost. It was Trump who was trying to steal the election by lying to people. And now the whole Trump party has that lie as one of its foundations. It's the cornerstone